online. We do not have our chair well, actually Craig online, I guess, unless somebody in the room wants to, usually the vice chair, I have Craig take over, but I know you're kind of limited capacity, right?
Yeah, I can certainly talk.
Okay.
And I can see.
Okay. The owl's really loud. So we can start the meeting. I'm just gonna turn the volume a little bit. Maybe you need to do that the other day.
Find it on the front there.
Oh, down here.
Here. There you go.
Okay. All right, take it away, Craig.
Yeah, just start with just attendance. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you do attendance.
I can do that.
Roger
Yeah, I'm here.
and Stanis.
Yeah.
Is Portia.
Yes, here.
Is Tuck.
Yep, here.
And then John is
Here.
and am I missing anybody?
So we are missing Jen and Peter.
Yeah, I see them on the camera.
4, 5, 6, that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Next, approval of the meeting minutes.
I move.
Hopefully everyone had a chance to look. Yeah.
Okay.
All those in favor? Everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Yeah, it looks like I think that's everything on my end.
Okay, so, the first, I guess, item really is, just wanted to, I guess, recap or get any thoughts around the East Grand Ave public meeting. I know I did hear from Roger, but I didn't know if we could have a conversation this
I
week.
wasn't able to attend.
Yeah, what was that? So that's why it's too bad that Jen isn't here.
I was
Dan, were you there?
I was there
Okay.
for the last probably 2/3.
Okay, John was there though also.
Yeah.
Was it recorded? No.
I was there as well.
Oh, yeah, that would be good.
I was really impressed by the amount of people that came out and just the engagement. The town organized that, and that a lot of people were there to express their thoughts, and it seemed like the consultant was really well prepared and thoughtful.
That's good. I know we do have better turnout when we go to the neighborhoods, and I think Roger has mentioned that many times, like, so when we do like a Pine Point meeting at the fire station, we've done at Higgins Beach at their clubhouse, or even Dunstan, I've done stuff at that fire station. We tend to get a better turnout that way than even just coming from Dunstan to town hall. It seems like we get a better turnout that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to do something like that again, as much as, or whether it's once a year or once every quarter or what. But I think if we're ever in a spot where we want to get engagement, I think that's a great way to do it.
And I know I have, it's been a long time, but we have had town meetings out at the Grange Hall in North Scarborough, and that ended up being a good venue. We had that this fall last time we went out there. It's been a long time, I know, but
It would be great.
Yeah.
I think.
But like I said, I mean, that's a long trek in, and just being kind of out there is helpful, I think, to get people to participate.
Yeah, especially when we have something North Scarborough related on the topic.
Yeah.
I think what it does, and to Roger's insistence that we do these neighborhood meetings, it tells them that we think they're important, we're gonna come to them.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, come to us. So I think that's some important.
I think people are more comfortable on their own turf also. They're more willing to, speak their mind and what's troubling them or whatever it is, versus coming in here.
Yeah.
To the Taj Mahal,
That's the same thing we've been talking about at the council level, like we need to stop saying come here. And we need to go to the neighborhoods, and we'll probably have more people show up that way, or different people show up than who typically does. I thought the meeting was great. What I recall was the conversation that I found most interesting was what to do, like, it seems like there's a lot of concern about people being able to get out of their driveways.
Mhm.
And what's the appropriate space to, between a parked car and a driveway to allow them to come out and turn however they need to turn. So I thought that was big, and then not necessarily related to the project, but an area I'm curious is how, what we're trying to apply there, is there opportunity to do anything with Jones Creek to pilot, test some things in advance, so that way sometimes like proving things out with a smaller pilot helps get buy-in for people who maybe are concerned about some of the other things that I think you guys got a lot of feedback on. So I thought that was a segue, like a different conversation, but like it was interesting to hear, like, yeah, if it's all going to be contiguous, like how do we make sure any principles we want to apply here, we can try and apply, especially if they're repaving
Mhm.
soon.
Is that happening this fall? When is it?
So, tonight, the Pine Point Association is actually having their, meeting. They did invite, town staff, so, I was invited, but I had this conflict.
Mm.
Tom Hall is there, the police chief's there, the public works director is there, and the community services also, George the Beach is down there, right now. And part of that conversation will be just that. I mean, I know that community is really anxious to hear about timing of the paving and all of that. I will say, I think what is gonna be said tonight is a conversation around, I think a week or two ago, there was a fire at Pine Point.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And the fire chief is very concerned because when they were down there, not one, but two of the fire hydrants did not work. And that's under main water, and so we've been having a lot of conversations with main water around that. They did bring in water tanks in. But that's a delay and obviously a huge safety concern, so, since that in the past week, main water has provided the town staff with a preliminary plan of they're trying to expedite some water main work in Pine Point, which would affect many of the roads we're talking about paving.
Mhm.
So I think that probably will get delayed because what they're trying to do is speed up and put out to bid and start construction this fall. Or put out to bid this fall for construction in the spring, I should say, of some new water mains out there, which means we would have to wait till after they dig up the road for us to
Mhm.
pave.
Do you know what caused the failure of the fire hydrants? Was it not because of the drought? It was something else that, why they weren't able to
I
work?
think it's the conveyance system ahead of one of them, that's why they were like, we know that this is a problematic, it was a repair that needed to happen out
Mm.
there. I think we have seen a lot of water main breaks in that general area. That is the only area of town that is under main water, and I know they did inherit a very old system, and they've been kind of systematically upgrading all of like Biddeford, Saco, Old Orchard, and us, we're kind of that little piece over here of Scarborough. So it's just a matter of like trying to prioritize this, and I think we've gotten their attention.
Yeah,
The second one I know was, I think Chief Kinlan said they just weren't able to actually turn it on. It was just stuck. It was
Mm.
just not operational, operable. So,
Mm.
Is main water, Portland Water District's counterpart down in York County?
they are,
I never heard of them before.
yeah, so Portland, Water District is really just Greater Portland. So when you get below that, yes, like I said, it's, their headquarters are in Biddeford.
Okay,
That's where their plant is.
okay.
And they do service, like I said, Biddeford, Saco, Old Orchard, and because of how the marsh is, it comes up from East Grand Ave, so they service kind of that peninsula of Pine Point. And then below that is Kennebunk Water, so, yeah.
And regarding the meeting.
Yeah.
It seems to me the other concern, and it sounds like it's been a concern for a while, is stormwater problems down there.
Is what?
Stormwater problems down there.
Mhm. I guess in what context, I'm sure.
I don't know.
drainage, wasn't there a big conversation on?
Are that, it's like flooding or?
Yeah, flooding and.
Yeah,
How that could be incorporated into the East Van Ave design, is that part of it?
yes, we are doing
But
drainage.
there were people on Jones Creek
Yeah.
talking about the same thing though.
So
Yeah,
sounds like
so
it's all over
it's
the
two
state.
different things.
Yeah,
So East Grand Ave, well, I should say Pine Point in general, and we'll get into this actually with our.
which in
agenda
2
item.
years may not even be there, so we may.
Right.
not-
Right, so there's that. I will say if we so those concerns have more to do with the vulnerability assessment we'll
Yeah.
talk about later. East Grand Ave, we will be enhancing the storm drain system. But we did, I think we commented that we did look at the vulnerability assessment and trying to figure out if we could raise the road or not, like that was all part of the considerations. It's just those lots and homes that are so close that you just wouldn't be able to get into their homes or into their driveways. So there's other things that we're looking at. It's like, so upsizing storm drain lines or is it replacing catch basins, those type of things. Craig had his hand up.
Yeah, I just had, I guess, two other kind of thoughts from the meeting as well. Another thing that was discussed quite a bit was like people in the public wanting input on any sort of like road redesign prior to paving. I know that was asked a number of times. There was talk about the repaving of, I think, Jones Creek, and people were very interested in like, can we remove some spots that are too close now, like during that instead of waiting? And I know that was kind of something that came up a few times, is using like repaving as an opportunity to relook at road design. And then the other thing I had was, and I'm sure John hears this a lot, but any sort of like town council or planning board public input, it seems like the number one thing everyone talks about it is traffic. And it doesn't seem like we get a ton of public input at our meeting, despite being kind of the committee that's focused on it. So I think doing more of these kind of targeted outreach in different locations to get input from these people would be good.
So I have two comments on that. The first one, talking about parking spaces, I will say in the conversation we just had with the water. Cause I did try to keep, and I talked to those on the board of Pine Point Association prior to our meeting on East Grand Ave, that we were really limited in time, so I really wanted to focus on East Grand Ave, because out of that meeting, as I said multiple times, we really had to get our engineer working on East Grand Ave, and if we'd spent time other places, which I knew was gonna have a conversation around paving and Jones Creek and larger issues with Pine Point, but I think they did a pretty good job staying focused on East Grand Ave. And I know Tom had kind of, I think, came out and was saying, okay, to your point, this could be a test case, and if we start looking at repaving, maybe we incorporate that 5 feet around the driveways. So I do know he tasked our public works director, Doug Howard, did an exercise around that on GIS. And so they're gonna be talking about that tonight down there, they're showing them a map right now, that when you do that, we lose 15 spaces out of 35. So it dramatically changes, what Tom interprets as beach access. And I think we've heard that from the public before, so it's probably a bigger conversation than just Pine Point. Because I think those guys are supportive of that. The question is the public at large in Scarborough supportive of that kind of decrease in parking?
I've also heard anecdotally though from people that a lot of the Pine Point residents park their cars
Yeah,
in
I've heard that
those
too.
parking places, so I think it would actually
Yeah.
probably most adversely impact the residents who live there and their
They're trying to
friends.
keep other people from
Yeah.
parking, so they
Yeah.
can park in their park. in
Yeah.
their
Don't wanna
driveway.
admit it.
So that's where I think that is something,
So it'd be interesting to
Yeah.
hear what the outcome is from
Yeah.
that meeting tonight, to hear how Pine Point folks react to that kind of reduction,
Yeah.
like to your point. Or, and how that moves forward, if that needs a bigger public process, or if that's like something everyone's in agreement with.
yeah, I mean, I would say if we ever remove any access to the beach, it is important, especially since we just changed the prices.
Yeah.
That we like put it out there before we do it to allow people to offer input.
So that is also being discussed, so they're showing that visual. There was a comment I received from Sue Hamel, which I believe I suggested she bring up in that public setting tonight and staff is aware of. She's proposing to move the parking on the opposite side of Jones Creek. So that you're away from those avenue streets that come out, because again, it's not only driveways, it's the street
And
access,
sight, it's also sight,
right?
line of sight.
That's what I'm saying, the line of sight from the actual intersections and not just driveways, if you flip it. The problem with that, I think you'll end up with probably 5 parking stalls, because there's so many driveways. And they are so close together that you end up probably losing a lot more, so. That's, like I said, it'll be interesting to hear the outcome of tonight's public
Yeah.
meeting down there on that one.
There are always implications.
So, and then the second piece that Craig just mentioned is traffic calming, which is essentially, I feel like one of the major cornerstones of the East Grand Ave design. Is gonna be bike, ped, safety, traffic calming. I mean, that's really the gist, is really probably, I would say motorists are probably the lowest on the totem pole when we start looking at the design of East Grand Ave. So I think we've heard that loud and clear. Also, there is the next effort that Autumn and I are part of from GP Cog. We have are partnered with and are developing the complete streets and traffic calming guidance document. We're in the very early stages of that. I have mentioned in connecting with Jen Ladd about how this group fits in. I think the first piece that you'll probably see, this group will probably see, is that we start categorizing complete streets. And so looking at in context, first we develop, is it a rural road, say, like Two Rod or something, like west of the turnpike, is it, so we give some examples of what that would be. Or local neighborhoods like Maple Ave, or even collectors like Hygas or Route 1, and you would kind of put them in buckets. And then be able to come up with, which we do have a consultant that's working on this, that has done the regional one. They're helping us develop one that's Scarborough specific, so that's what we're kind of morphing this into. So that's where this group will come in, is I see as probably the first step, bringing kind of those contexts to you and say, is this right? Is 6 enough? Like, we have so many different contexts. Is 6 right? Is 3 right? Like, what is right for Scarborough when you talk about how many different types of roads we have? And then from there, the consultant can help us shape and say, here's what might make sense for, say, a road like Broad Turn Road, which is under this category. Or it can also be segments, and maybe the first section of Broad Turn is a certain type, and then over the turnpike is a different type. You know what I mean? So we can start looking at maps around that, as well as just general high level, what kind of categories seem to fit for Scarborough.
So how does this fit with Vision Zero?
With Vision Zero, well, that's also, I think that's kind of woven through all of
Okay,
this. When we
okay.
talk about traffic calming, it's that principle behind it. I think that, and I think that's how GP Cog looked at it, is they did the Vision Zero first, and now they're doing this complete streets and it's traffic calming up. And then we actually, I think, are the first municipality. Everyone's doing these pieces that I think we're the first one to kind of blend them together and say, can we get one guidance document that, because it's all kind of related, right? I know we adopted kind of the regional Vision Zero, so that makes it simple. But when you start talking about all these documents, they really are, I think, fit well together. And so should we have one guidance document that kind of oversees kind of these street, like either the retrofits or as we do roadway projects. So I think the traffic calming, like we're hearing that from every neighborhood. So I think it is important to not only include it here, but to move forward and have that kind of overarching policies.
Has there been a formal request for traffic calming
Where?
in Pine Point?
Yes,
Grand, okay.
well, not East Green,
So,
I mean,
As far as the review, we went through that whole process. I didn't know whether there had been a formal request for.
so my understanding from Chief Holmquist, who the requests go through. There have been 4, I think, just on Jones Creek.
Okay.
But I don't know if they're all complete, but I know there's, and so again, they're probably discussing
Okay.
that tonight down there. Yeah,
It's interesting how we're hearing concerns from a lot of people about the pace of growth and slowing traffic, but then also hearing a lot about concerns about safety, which usually slow traffic down.
Mm.
So I don't know how we like,
Play
Yeah,
both ends.
yeah.
Well, there's a lot of contradictions.
yeah,
I mean, the town is full of contradictions.
I know. That's why you should run for council.
Roger.
so after, the meeting, just to give you kind of our next steps, we have let, the
Wait a minute, I
consultant.
gotta check. Is this an initiative on your part to get me off the planning board?
No.
Okay.
Cause I go to council twice a month. I don't do planning board a month. All John.
Next steps.
Next steps, we have let the consultant loose on kind of developing the 60% design. So that should be ready in January, so we can look at kind of cost estimates, which will be the big thing, is where are we at? We know what we want, what's it gonna cost? Do we have to start talking about value engineering things out, or maybe we add things in, what that means, so that we're prepared to have that conversation and then be prepared for the budget cycle so that we can go, it would be a capital improvement project request through Public Works to the construction of East Grand Ave. I am thinking that at that point, when we have the 60% design complete and we have an estimate, it'll be very far along, that we put back out for the public comment. And we discussed with other initiatives we've done that we've gotten, even with transportation and open space, we've gotten good responses by putting that online and getting comments online. I feel like we get a lot of people, like to your point, people are comfortable just writing their thoughts and not speaking maybe necessarily in front of a whole crowd of people. So that's kind of what we're thinking right now, is to put that out in January or into February to receive comments around East Grand Ave.
One of the
Design.
comments that I have heard though from people saying, why do we, we get asked for comments and we submit them and they kind of go into a black hole. I think the positive about public meetings is you've got people who are very focused. And you can get a lot of comments, but I think people also play off of each other. And so there's a lot of education that goes on in that context. That doesn't happen with just the feedback.
Are you
Once
talking
we
about
get
the
it to-
surveys? What are you
Well,
talking?
I'm not talking about surveys, but she was just talking about getting comments once they
Yeah.
have 60% design, is
Oh,
putting it
okay.
out for comment, and I'm just saying, some of the comments that I've heard from people. Is that they would,
by hearing of.
right, they,
Well, I think we talked about even doing a possible virtual meeting also.
The thing that's important about 60%.
Yep.
Timeframe or process is that it gives me, the people won't be able to come back to you later on and say, well, we didn't know anything.
Yeah.
Why is this all being done? We had no input on this, and so you have to bring them along. So
Are there any thoughts expressed by the consultant after the meeting around changes in their thinking of the design, or was it more or less?
I guess I did not hear anything specifically to change course dramatically. I think there were, as they pointed out, I think in the meeting, there's some things that are question marks, like how do you buffer between the bi-directional bike lanes and the traffic, how do you deal with sight lines, all of those kind of things that kind of come out during the 60%. In talking with our consultants, they didn't seem like those were obstacles that were, that there were an issue that, yep, those are things we need to do and kind of check off as we go. I will say the survey we did, crossbar box, we have 3 existing. I think from that, we kind of gave them the direction that, those were, I think, the 3 most used. We asked about putting in, the buckets, your sea glass, in which crosswalks would probably, I think everyone got 2. So you can put where you see most people or where you most use crosswalk. And we did talk about adding a 4th, except Dover. I have to pull it up, but it's kind of spaced out, so you kind of have the 3 and maybe adding 1, so you'd have 4 along that corridor. That would be all spaced out so that you don't have to go too far to get to a crosswalk. And these would be enhanced, so you'd have the bump out, so you're not standing behind parked vehicles, you're kind of at the edge. And having better line of sight to be able to make that safe crossing. Okay. So the next thing I have on the agenda is, vulnerability assessment identified roadways at risk. And so last Wednesday, there was a council workshop. On just that, well, on the bigger picture, which is the vulnerability assessment. Let's see.
These maps on this one, those are striking.
Yeah,
And one of the first thoughts I had, I said to myself, I wonder if there's a Venice, Maine, because we ought to start considering changing our name to Venice. But boy, I mean.
Yeah,
yeah. So Anna will be sharing in a minute, but the maps you're talking about, we can kind of walk through, but I did want to highlight from the town council workshop a couple of slides. This is from that presentation. And I apologize that you can't see. That of the so I guess I should start with this vulnerability assessment that we're working on is really to identify public infrastructure that we need to kind of start prioritizing where we put our funds and efforts. And while the maps, focus on that, it is available for private property owners to kind of see where that inundation works. But really, that's when we start talking about privatization of our roadways. These are public roadways. So we made that conscious effort. It does not include private ways. Or private easements or any of that. So of the 100 public roads we looked at, 38 are at risk today. And then in 25 years, we're looking at 62. And there are some properties that present day can be cut off because of those title restrictions.
and when we looked at prioritizations of the road, because I'm on vulnerability.
Yeah.
Part of that was people being able to get away, so if there was evacuation that they could leave. But the other thing was looking at things like lift stations, electrical sources and so on that could be also impacted. And I think some of those are already in the process of being lifted. But it is really, some people may look at some of the roads and go, why is that a big deal? Well, because they're particular infrastructure.
I mean, even
Concerns.
somebody who decides to, they have a nice home at either Higgins or Pine Point, and they decide to,
Raise,
raise them up to meet the current ordinances and everything. I think they better buy a boat too. Because there's gonna be water around there.
in a mooring.
And it's not just those, I mean, you talk about the marsh, we get into
Yeah.
scenarios where
Migration.
the marsh, Scarborough Marsh actually connects with Spurwink Marsh, and then we start talking about Winnick's Neck and other more inland kind of.
Yeah,
but
and over
Phillip
by
Marsh
Payne Road.
areas.
Over by
Yeah,
Payne Road.
Main Road, yep. So I guess it was a good segue. Portia mentioned that she is on this, our stakeholder group. We have. Or maybe you could talk to who makes up that committee. I know we have two from Higgins Beach, one from Preps Neck, one
Two
from.
from Hinton, one from Pine Point, Jane Sennett, Sue Plow, Peter Sablinski.
Who's main geological survey, he's a great resource.
I think.
Well, we got
We have the
fire.
fire chief, we have the public
Public
works,
Works, yeah.
their planning and.
Robin, was it Robin on it?
Robin's
Oh, long
range
range,
plan.
long range planning has a draft.
We haven't
yeah.
met in person. in a
Been a long
while.
I was gonna say, well, April, Slider is our liaison to that group. Also,
Mhm.
and so there was a lot of discussions around, okay, how do you prioritize? So that's when we started talking about risk and consequences. And so how do you rank them in those, so trying to put some parameters around it to have like, because we're engineers, and how do you make an equation that, so it's fair to everybody, right? You end up coming up with this plus this equals this. So that's where we got into the consequences matrix. And so these are kind of the factors as far as how much areas being impact, the public safety piece, because that is needs to be weighted heavily, damage potential, environmental impact, and the economic impact, and just getting people to and from areas. So that's where we started looking at volumes and things like that. So based on this, you get like kind of this consequence for
And
And-
Angela, is there any way of, look, you know, 2050, there's gonna be like 62,
yes.
all right? I wonder if there's any way of looking at, say, 2035 and see what's trend, you know, how this whole process is moving along, and whether that's still a risk at that level.
Well, I think when you're talking about 5-year scenario, it's to,
I'm on 10.
oh, I thought you said,
Didn't I say 35? I
Yeah.
meant 35. 2035.
Even
2035.
following up
so
then,
right now,
Yeah, just to take a look at the same thing,
There
Yeah.
were some graphs.
and just to see if it is on that same timeline,
yeah, so we're looking at 2030.
yeah,
So that's only 5 years
Yeah.
out, so that's one of the scenarios we'll look at, and then it jumps to 2050.
Yeah,
So there's a 20-year gap,
Okay.
and then 2050 goes to 2100, so then there's a 50, so it kind of progresses, that span gets larger, so. And it's all, like I said, it's really predictions and estimates, so when you start whittling that down from. Like I said, we have the 2030 to go to 2035 is probably not enough to see a trend or to see that difference, maybe.
yeah.
But it
If you
doesn't
get-
include the difference between storms.
Oh, yeah.
high tide,
Storm
and
surge
high
and-
tide,
yeah,
normal
high
every
peak,
day,
yeah.
and that's like the interesting thing, I think.
Hmm.
When you really start to play with.
because the surge is such a power
Mhm.
of water coming in that you get more destruction.
But
So-
I guess my point is,
Yeah.
we're talking about maybe a lot of expenditure
Mhm.
to address these issues.
Yeah.
And there are some out there that don't think that this is even an issue, you know, and so I'm wondering. I mean, I think it's pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
What this is saying. And if we
Yeah.
want to deal with this, we're talking about a lot of money
Yeah.
in these two neighborhoods.
that's also an important component that I think we're missing when we're looking at these rankings is it could be that there's one, major expenditure and then 5 of them are minor to get from
Yeah.
in a good place. So
Yeah,
when doing that ranking, you wouldn't want to spend all of your funds on just one and miss getting 10 more that are a little bit further back.
mhm. And one of the things that the group wanted to make clear is that we are not really necessarily ranking, so what they did is looking at as a top 30, to your point, Stannis, is it's not like you do the first one and then you do the second one and do the third one. You're really looking at opportunities and how you cluster those and how you sequence them makes a difference. So that's where the consultant has put them in alphabetical order here. Here's the top 30. So it's really kind of looking at which one you do first and second, and kind of, it's not really in a defined order. What they did note is that 3 of them have adaptation projects already underway. That's Route 1 is DOT and Route 9 is DOT, but Sawyer Street, we are looking at partnering with Cape Elizabeth and have a large federal grant to do a restoration of that Spurwink Marsh by pulling out Sawyer Street. That's the one off Spurwink that connects over to Cape Elizabeth. There will be public meetings coming up in September around that. They did have a joint council workshop regarding that to kind of get us through, moving towards the grant that was kind of agreed upon there to kind of do that next step. And so, that's where we're at, is that planning process, and now, reaching out and doing some more of the public process, which would include also discontinuing that roadway. And either side of it is, Rachel Carson and Inland Fisheries and Wildlife would be the beneficiary of us discontinuing that road. I sent you guys a memo that our consultants created that gives you kind of the scenarios and kind of walks through kind of the justification behind these rankings. So that, you guys can look at that. This is all information that is on the vulnerability assessment webpage through our town website. So anybody from the public can kind of get in there and go through this. And with that, though, I think I'm gonna jump over to the story now, but I'll stop sharing that.
Angela, was there any, other than like the big streets, like Route 1, Payne Road?
Yeah.
Were any of these other roads also part of the transportation assessment?
Yeah, and
Because a
so
lot of
that's
them
what,
seem like they're mostly
yeah,
streets and Pine Point and there we go, that one. And so it seems like not only do we need to fix our roads for flow and safety,
Mhm.
this is a big thing, so how do we prioritize all
Well,
of these needs?
that was the intent of bringing this to you guys to start with, is to start trying to see some of that overlap.
Okay.
I think we are, like you said, trying to pick away at those larger ones that are on here, and it's really about partnership, because we cannot tackle Route 1 by ourselves, or even Route 9 is
Yeah.
a huge deal. And I don't know that there's much else that kind of rises to the surface, but I think it's good for you guys to appreciate, kind of like to your point, there's other needs and priorities in town, and we start weighing some of these roadways. Is there opportunities to group? Is there opportunities to look at neighborhoods? Is there opportunities to do other things? And keeping in the back of your minds as the transportation committee, all of this work that has been done, it's Anna's been doing a good job trying to make sure we kind of blend all these together. And I think we work a lot, I think, in the committees and silos. And I know this, like you said, might not necessarily be, okay, we're not talking about Broad Turn Road, that's something that, or Payne Road, that something has to happen necessarily in certain sections, but it's good that you guys have that background and context, and that we're building on all of these plans, planning studies kind of as a whole, even when, I mean, I encourage you guys all to get on our open space plan and look at that. And so we're gonna be dealing with trails, master plan, and all of those things, and how they all work together, I think is really key. And the more that our committee members are kind of aware of all of the studies and efforts, I think it's helpful in the long run as you guys are making decisions.
Well, I think using Scotto Road as an example and trying to decide what to do about the culverts there.
Yep.
Is a part of all of this.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not just replacing culvert place in place, there are other implications of what's going on down there at that intersection.
Yeah.
Question, I have, at what point would like federal money or FEMA step in for stuff like this, like Crowd's Neck, for example?
Mhm.
That was mostly FEMA money that paid for that, right? That
It is,
construction.
we pay our match, so I think it's 20%, 25%, something like that, yeah.
Is that only when there's actual physical damage, so when it's
Yes.
kind of too late in a way, but
Yes.
Yeah.
So they do, yes, provide us support, to reconstruct what was there. And I will say. The fortunate thing or unfortunate thing, depending on how you're looking at it. Is Scarborough with our inundation scenarios that we look at. We talk about like wave action at the beach is one thing, but when we start talking about these maps showing inundation, like what we're hearing say for Sawyer Street, for example, is that you don't get a pounding surf coming on Sawyer Street, you get a gentle wave, gentle water slowly rising and slowly going over it, and it's submerged, so you can't cross it. And it does damage, obviously, to the soils underneath and all of that in the pavement section, but it's not like the road got completely annihilated and washed out, you know what I mean? So I think people don't necessarily see that that damage is still happening. And for us to come back in and make that safe passage is still an expense. And even Route 1 for that matter, it's not, you don't see 6-foot waves going over Route 1. It's, you see it coming with the tide. You can see it actually coming slowly through the marsh, and the marsh is protecting a lot of our infrastructure. It's just now we're just gonna be submerged in some locations, so. And so from a FEMA standpoint, it's hard to justify. It's one thing to say that culvert got wiped out, we're replacing the culvert, or at Proud's Neck when the whole bank went and half the road. We put that back, or what we saw at Higgins Beach, we lost the sidewalk and exposed the sewer. Like those are kind of things that, it's more of the extreme. I would say that FEMA kind of steps in and is able to help us through that. It's the other stuff that is kind of on us locally.
Are there other grants though? That typically help with this type of vulnerability, climate change?
Yeah, so we actually are working right now on a grant for the Payne Road culverts, which we can look at. There are 3 on Payne Road that were identified in this vulnerability assessment. One is just upstream from the Scotto Hill culvert. And so staff is doing some additional planning efforts in order to head towards that grant and try to get grant money for those kind of looking at sea level rise and climate action. And
Well, just the migration of the marsh.
yeah,
We have no idea exactly where it's gonna decide to go, but we've got to try to figure out how to. Manage our way.
yeah, if you zoom in, like you can see where she's at is Route 1, you can see Payne Road above, Milliken Hill Road. There are 3 definite fingers. Those are culverts that come up through from the marsh. Which scenario are you on? 4. So this scenario 4, what we talk about is go back to my cheat sheet. Is what we, basically, the equivalent to this is what we saw on in January of 2024. Is scenario 4, and that, because they did 10 different scenarios, that's like the water level at 9.6. And it shows talk about probability, it's on the other. Maybe I should.
Is that 2100 or 2050?
That's today for storm events. So that's what I'm saying. This is actually what happened during January of 2024. It was the storm event with a high tide.
And all that blue was all like that?
Yes, we flooded out in those locations and went up through there, yes.
pretty scary.
And
That, in the scenarios that, to Roger, what Roger was saying, the future, like regular, high tide scenarios. Is there a scenario where that is a regular, high tide?
yeah, so that's what we were looking at, 2050. Right?
Oh, I don't.
On the side, if
Oh,
you get
okay.
out of that.
See, I wonder how many people who live out around Beach Ridge Road and in that area there. Think they're in, well, you know, they're included in any of this stuff, you know?
Right, and I guess that's what I will say, only, the analysis only is with, basically from the ocean. So this is the inundation from the ocean. What it does not factor in is rain events so the inland piece is not factored in. This is just based on. Yeah, who's that?
That was a good one.
I mean, the town basically becomes a lagoon.
Yeah, well, and you not only have high tide, but you have king tides. And then you have storm events and you have storm surge with high wind.
I mean, that's
Okay.
pretty.
I was just trying to equivalent, it was during the storm, so the scenario 4 was during the storm event. That we would see today. And then high tide, I think it was 2050, and that's what there's a graphic that shows that too. But they have the X's.
I've got like these little boxes in my way.
Yeah.
Where am I going?
From the,
Oh, full screen.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to make it. I don't have a touch screen.
Look at that.
It was rough.
Being underwater would do it.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
So if you go, scroll, I keep wanting to do this touch screen.
I know.
Not on there, but it's
Because we was going through this stuff on that. Well, it kind of, it would be like, yeah, of course.
there we go.
There we
That's
go.
what I was looking for. So I think this is the
Yeah,
key,
down there.
that you're looking
Look at
at.
those homes.
So Roger, Right now, what we were looking at,
They're not raised up for anything.
Oh, there you go.
that was cool.
That's perfect. This 9.6 is what we had in January of 2024. That is what's happening now during coastal storm events. And then high tide, that would be the normal occurrence of a high tide. That's astronomical high tide, I should say, at 2100. So those would be the scenarios you're talking about. So what we were talking about earlier today, Autumn and I, was like, okay, so if we're gonna do a road, are we looking at which scenario we're kind of building to is gonna be a whole conversation. But it seems as though scenario 3, we're not that far. At 2050, the high tide is, so if you look at 3, that kind of puts it into perspective a little bit, and we start talking about, okay, it could be pretty frequently that we're seeing this scenario in just 25 years.
Yeah.
And so when you look at that, that might be a little what we're dealing too. Cause I know 2100 sounds a little pie in the sky, but it's coming.
But we've had, and we've had it. I mean, people keep talking about these once in 100-year events and suddenly they're happening every year.
Yeah.
Angela, from like your own perspective, how concerning is this from like fiscally in terms of the amount of funding that's likely needed to bring this up to what it needs to be? And is that like catastrophic to us as a town, or is that like something that's?
I think, well, I think there's been, I will say December of 2023. This is a huge hill to try to get everybody to like look at or say, what is happening? This is coming. What are you gonna do to prepare for it? I think the January storms of 24 put it in everybody's perspective that this is a real thing and this is going to occur again. And I will say up to the point that it's actually in Augusta part of the conversation now. So they started looking at how can we reinforce kind of our infrastructure, how can we make it more resilient, like Portia was talking about, when we're starting to talk about rebuilding pump stations. In order to get grant funds for anything, you're raising everything. In order to get those grant opportunities, we're not just putting in the same culvert we had, or even sizing up one, we're looking at it as we actually were on today looking at Department of Marine Resources, that they have a whole coastal wise program now that's for these tidal restrictions, that you're not just putting in what we had always engineered in the past. Is you kind of, it flips the whole mindset of we're doing more resilient infrastructure. And there's grant, as you pointed, there's grant opportunities. If you do it the right way, you get these grant opportunities. It might cost more, but they want you to kind of put those in. So I think, yes, it is a big kind of monumental kind of price tag coming in, but it also is a little bit of a state kind of level. We're not the only coastal community. I think Maine has the longest coastline, I think, of any state, right? So it's not just us.
This is nationwide.
Yeah,
All these
and it's
folks.
nationwide.
So when you're talking grant money, Skyro's gonna be way down here somewhere, you know? I mean, when you're talking Miami, Norfolk, Virginia,
Mhm.
Boston, New York City, I mean,
But you can, you know, you think about it, you can, it's like healthcare, you do preventative healthcare, you do a crisis, ER type stuff.
But
One way or
state-
the other, we're gonna
state's
get.
putting money towards it too, so it's not just, we're not talking about just national grants, I mean, we're talking about state. Legislators actually making this a priority, and they have since January, I think it's all part of the conversation. And ways to even get like low interest loans for towns and doing different things to try to get creative about helping, cause it's a real problem for
Well, you
all
can
our
just
coastal
take
communities.
a ride down Route 9 right along the coast, and that's gonna be all wiped right out. If this scenario occurs.
So this is scenario 3, this is the high tide in 2050.
How many houses would that be over at Jones Creek? Can't remember, but is the blue that's on the other side, Jones Creek, is that all houses?
Probably, yep, there's probably what, 30 on both sides,
Uh,
and the thing about. I struggle a little bit, is we still allow development and reconstruction and new builds and things like that. And those are hard conversations to have with people on their ocean view property, like you can't build a bigger house, because then is the town gonna have to figure out a buyback program for your bigger house, or are we just talking about your cottage in 20? I mean, those are like lots of conversations. I would say, to your point, the price is very huge.
How well? I mean. Obviously, it's gonna take a lot of time and money to kind of do a lot of these things, but I'm just curious, like. What is our system in place to warn people? When a storm is coming, that they should evacuate or leave their home, like, I don't. If this is gonna become a more common occurrence. Is there a good system in place to do that for people that are at risk, to make sure that they can get out of their home safely?
So that was definitely part of the conversation with the stakeholder group, and those at Pine Point and Higgins. And right now, our fire chief is also the emergency management officer. And so he talked through a little bit about the system that's in place now, but, part of our demonstration projects, we talked about enhancing that kind of alert system. That was something that came out of the Pine Point public meeting. Is there a way, and is that blasting everyone's cell phones in the area, or horns, or different things like that? Because what I think the consultant had mentioned is like, even to give as much warning as possible, because someone might be down there and then run to the grocery store and can't come back. Cause like Roger said, like if your house is up, you're good, but you're not moving back and
Yeah.
forth. And we also talked about the importance of, the added importance, I should say, of the fire station being done at Pine Point and having that staffed ahead of time. So you have emergency personnel right in the neighborhood. And Higgins Beach is not that far off with, the one on Black Point Road, but there is, if you scroll down and look at Ocean Ave, that crossing. In this scenario still stays, but that becomes a critical point. In making sure that we look at prioritizing, say, Ocean Ave, in order to not cut off that entire neighborhood without we don't have the services in that neighborhood right now.
When we rebuilt Proud Snack, did we rebuild that in a way that made it a lot more resilient?
Yes, it was a challenge though, so what, FEMA gives us money for, putting back stuff that was there. We had to go through another hoop or another step to say, if we put back what was there, it won't stay. So we had to have there's a whole nother process, so we went through with, Proud Snacks, so there is, a different design, that was all just a vegetated slope, that we couldn't really stabilize on a one-to-one slope. So we had to work with FEMA in order to get, it's a different pot of money. They have, just the repair, or they have the mitigation, but then there's also kind of looking at, next steps, but that's a harder hoop to jump through. We were able to do that for that Proud Snack slope though, because we wouldn't have been able to get that road back on.
It's like perhaps next higher up then.
Yes.
There's just an island. in
They
there.
Yeah.
Was that more erosion and,
I think that was
Lack of
both.
both?
We had some significant storm surges with our, that 2024 storm.
Those were 17-foot waves. in that area.
Yeah, the naysayers who at least hopefully were exposed during that storm, the naysayers are going to find themselves in big trouble one of these days if they sit back and say, well, there's no big deal, I can sit in this house and not do anything.
And I think one of the big issues we had during that 24 storm event was the sewer pump station down at Champion Street in Higgins. It's completely underwater, and that rebuild, they did that in a way that's more resilient, all with the control panels up higher. They flood proofed kind of that infrastructure they were putting back in. So there's added cost, but there's also added benefit as you do that. Knowing that that's gonna happen again if you don't, so.
What does the orange signify on the map?
Oh, it's some,
Jim Blair's.
It's what? Have you thought,
So
what
last
about,
March.
what about putting up
No.
like poster boards? Of 2050 and 2100, both at the town hall and in the library. And just leaving there, let just people,
yeah, it's not a bad idea, cause I think it's good to have it printed, so you can just go
Yeah.
up to it and stare at it.
Yeah, yeah.
This is,
did you put this in the newsletter? I think you did, didn't you?
Yeah.
But it was hard to read it in the newsletter.
Well, the hope is that you'd go to the link and go, and so basically with the story map, you can zoom into any road and even any property and say, is my property gonna be inundated during different scenarios? And you can click on each of the 10 scenarios to see where your house sits, like for instance, that. Yeah,
But I still think maybe like a couple poster
Yeah.
boards at the library and at town hall here when people are coming in all the time. Just. let 'em
Waiting
come.
for their license, so you can just, right there, so everybody has to come into the. license for.
Going back to our discussion on Jones Creek and maybe needing stormwater improvements and the repaving. Would that be an opportunity to also think about maybe that being one of our first vulnerability projects to, if they could have synergy? Or is that like a full rebuild that's kind of
so,
not something they do it, just their mind?
so that section is, it's a little complicated, cause what you would think when you're coming with, say. With the sea level rise, it actually comes from the back, so that's why Jones Creek gets it, and it comes in, like you were saying, that scenario is really, we're flooding out from the back first. It kind of comes around the point and comes back. The problem and what we saw even in the 2024 storm is that the fire department was down there pumping out everybody's basements and in those low-lying areas, so that one of the obvious ones is let's lift all the roads, which even if you can get around how you get people back into their driveways or their homes, in this scenario, you're actually building a dam so that with rain events, it's trapping water because they are the low point. And so in order to get that water out, so we're talking about like pump systems and stuff for rain events. So we're pumping storm water we can look at that, but just to give you a full picture of kind of what we're looking at is if you start. Building up some, like a road like Jones Creek, you're going to have to do other systems to deal with the drainage that you're trapping
This is
on a
like a
normal rainy day, you know?
I would, when I look at it, just like. Almost like it's new today, just playing with it or whatever, when I look at it, I almost feel like you start with the closest to the. Like Route 1. You don't start at the ocean, I feel like you have to get you funnel down to it, right? It's like a really narrow spot and you're trying to get as much, like Black Point Road to me looks like we should probably fix that, like that should be a priority, and then I'm just talking, but. The way I'm thinking about it, cause if you start down here, but you still can't get through the other steps, to get to the center of
But you're
town
also
where
talking
you're
about
not.
volumes of people and where people can get through, and so.
Right.
So the evacuation.
Areas,
route.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, like trying to get people to those points, but starting at those points and working to the worst, I think.
And the important point about Pine Point is you got that narrow little inlet, so all water that rushes in. Now it's gonna come back out, but you had rain events to that, and now it's like you've almost got a big seawall there that's gonna create more. Pressure on backside.
Of course, we don't know what's going on in Old Orchard either, because I suspect a lot of Route 9, that's all wiped out too.
Right, and so they're saying evacuation route, we can't really rely on going to East Grand Ave to go through Old Orchard, right? So.
I like what you said, Autumn, I agree with you, I think it's like. There's. Things where we wanna really address, and then there's some areas that. More passive things like an evacuation system might be like what we need to do near term eventually to. Get to some of those like more pocketed places. But I do think we have to figure out. For our coastal communities, we have to do something.
Yeah.
But what is that something? I don't know.
Well, we built some boathouse, put some
Yeah.
zodiacs in there,
Yeah.
so.
So we did,
Yours
as
boathouse.
part of this, talk about some demonstration projects and in the scope of work, there are a few, like I said, we're doing work on the Payne Road culverts. We also tried to pick kind of a project at each Higgins and Pine Point. The Pine Point folks in that community meeting, trying to come up with what do you guys want us to focus on? It was really about the alert system. It was also about, a property owner's guide to climate change or sea level rise. And so it's really, we're developing kind of this step-by-step process, like how do you, because it is a lot for a layperson to be like, okay, I'm in the velocity zone and I'm in shoreline, I'm in a floodplain and I'm in, trying to navigate that for kind of a normal resident. And that was what we heard is like, okay, if I do want to say elevate my home,
Mhm.
how do I navigate that? What are my steps? And kind of walking people through, here's how you do some of the simple or I would say the easiest lifts, or I know they're not cheap, so I hate to say that, but because raising your home is not an easy lift, but is how would you prepare? Here's a step-by-step approach on what you could do on your property. So you're not completely like, I'm just giving up, I don't know what to do. And so that's what we got out of that neighborhood is looking at those type of things. It also can translate to say Higgins Beach. It is specifically a Pine Point kind of homeowners guide, but we talked with the Higgins Beach community about what pieces can translate, which pretty much all of it. And so doing that there, specifically Higgins Beach though, their demonstration is on Bayview where we lost the road and sidewalk near the ramp. Yep. And we just met with DEP today about talking about limitations of what we can and can't do around that. So that's the revetment, you see all the rock, and then there's a ramp, and so it's up towards to that point, really looking at between the ramp and say that walkway, what can we do to kind of fortify that or rebuild sand dunes that, I mean, one of the scenarios is you put in sand dunes that we keep replacing with every major event. I mean, that is what it is. And
Wasn't
that
there
would be
also
like-
an option to just like let part of Bayview. Go away and just make those dead end streets?
that is another scenario that I think, people like Maine Geological Survey would like to see that become dune, Bayview Ave become dune. That would mean we are relocating sewer and water.
Mhm.
And then there are some driveways that aren't on another side street that we'd have to figure out access to their homes.
Yeah,
There was a comment the other night at the workshop by somebody, I think on Bayview, was talking about seawalls, in fact, that there were varying heights of seawalls. And so some of the seawalls were low enough that they were allowing inundation, and they didn't know what was gonna be happening in terms of evaluating that and getting them, to be.
Are seawalls town property?
No, not all of them. Some are that rock from the ramp. To the left of that ramp, that is all town property, that triangle, like on the water side, that's ours, and so the roadway is ours, so that is ours. I think most of the seawalls are private, but you'll see like at those dead end streets, those would be town owned.
yeah, on Shipwreck, I think that's what you're referring to.
Mm.
They rebuilt quite a few of the private homes,
Mhm.
rebuilt their seawalls.
Yeah.
But they're like large timbers with rocks. You know,
Mm.
and I can see where the water can go right through. I mean, it protects maybe the home from drifting away, but the water's still gonna work. its
Still get
way through the-
inundation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they did it nice, it looks nice,
Mhm.
but how functional it is, I'm not sure.
Well, and I think that has a lot to do with DEP permitting, so, they're really only allowed to put back what was there. So,
Now,
and then to your point about the elevation of the seawalls and the burying, it again goes by permit basis with DEP, so if we wanted to kind of rectify that. It would be a DEP permit process, which clearly states that there are no new seawalls, and so we start. You can't really add to a seawall, so that's again where Augusta comes in, is like, it really needs to have. That kind of, those statutes kind of looked at and saying, well,
What's reasonable here?
what's reasonable, without saying. There's a reason why you can't put a new seawall in, and I think Higgins is actually a good example of that, where. If you go out there, like at high tide, there's not a whole lot of beach. And I
like
think
that,
if you look over time, you'll see where that, the rock is from the ramp, south, that revetment. It has no beach, but also, we've lost a lot of sand. And if you look over the last 50 years, that beach got smaller and smaller. So what happens when you put a wall or you put a
Yeah, it
rock,
increases
it actually scores out all that sand, and that sand doesn't come back in those instances. It's just so much erosion. And so that gets lower and lower. So that's the disadvantage of adding those. So like I said, if we just put a wall all the way across, we're just gonna keep losing more and more of the beach. So that's the issue with that.
so we've been basically talking about. Situations that are gonna cost the town or some government entity a lot of money. To rectify or address. What about the homeowners? Are there any programs where homeowners are actually. You know, if they came here and said, no, you cannot build there. You know, because it's. We can't guarantee that it's, you know, your home is gonna be safe. Isn't there like well, I know there's flood insurance and you can't get a federal mortgage. Federal backed mortgage without flood insurance, you know, but what about, isn't there like something that emerged a few years ago? With, at the federal level, with all like the flooding, the Mississippi flooding and all the flooding in the Midwest and everything, where they actually. Discourage people from moving back into these areas and they encourage them.
Oh, like managed retreat or like buyback programs or.
Yeah, anything like that, you know?
Well, I will say Maine's laws has it in their DEP regulations, I should say. That you can only rebuild once, since 1985, it must have been when they put it in, the regs say you can do a major rebuild only once. And so that, to that point, they won't let you rebuild again. when you do like a full tear, like you've lost your house and you need to replace your house, you're only allowed to do that once. You can do, obviously, if there's other damage and if there's a lot of permitting involved, but you can repair your home and stuff like that, but if your house gets washed away by the ocean, you get one chance to rebuild, which also encourages you to rebuild it in a resilient way,
Yeah,
and you get one shot to do it. So,
But to Roger's point about like proactively, are there programs where if you wanna put your house up? Like, do those exist, especially if it's known that their homes are at risk? Can any homeowners go to some entity and say, I wanna apply for that and get some sort of assistance?
not that I'm aware of, and being someone, I'm actually in the middle of doing that with my house right
You'd love
now.
to know.
Yeah.
I would love to know if anyone does have any
It
say that,
seems
cause I would
so
love to have
nonchalant.
some money to do that, we're actually raising our cottage, and. Yeah, so I know it's no little feat, but I also, I don't know of any. Really avenues for private properties, I know FEMA has a program. That you can do reimbursement, but it has to be your primary resident, it can't be a second home, so I would think probably there's quite a few in Higgins or Pine Point, or even that it's not. A year-round primary home, so they probably wouldn't have that opportunity.
There are some programs like buyback programs that the town or the city actually buys the home, but the resident sort of leases it back until they can no longer live in it. So you get some of the money back, those are some of the recommendations to look further into as well. There's some things
More
like
about
that.
retreat, right?
Yeah.
Managed retreat of some sort, yeah.
Because I mean, when you look at this, there are some places you're like, oh, we could do some things to make this, and then there's some
Yeah.
other areas where like, it doesn't matter what you do, it's not gonna probably work out unless there's some crazy new science that comes up in 25 years. That's what we were talking about, like what scenario do we pick to work from? 2100 seems really far away. 2050 doesn't seem that far away.
So you guys are picking scenario 3 as your like, is that what you're leaning to?
That's what
Three.
we.
Yeah, we're like 3 or
Like,
4 seems really reasonable.
Because they've already been there.
Well,
And it's not that far
Well, that
away.
was the storm event, and
Storm, yes.
3
Yeah.
is 2050. So it seemed really reasonable.
Yeah.
Do we have any new developments that are going in to areas that even in like scenario 6 or 7? That would.
What did you wanna talk
It's
about,
like-
the
No,
growth or?
not just like renovations or additions, but like new,
No,
is there a way to maybe restrict that? Is that?
well, that was something that I was, oh gosh, it stresses me out, cause some of these lots are really big and the state just enacted, but I've gotta go back and look at all my shoreline zoning and all my other rules to see how it affects, because there's water and sewer down here, yay. And technically you can have 5,000 square foot lots all over if you have water and sewer next year. So the idea of these even subdividing something for, I don't know how possible that is. but
Can the town possibly restrict that or put something in place to?
We would have to do, I don't know, I
Yeah.
don't know, enough, but it's a concern in some of it.
you think?
I think this just. We were at a meeting yesterday on LD 1829, which Autumn's kind of referencing. I think this might be another thing to go to our state legislatures on to
Did you
say,
think about this?
yeah.
I mean,
because-
specifically, we looked at Pine Point, Higgins is a little different, cause it's very
Yeah.
a close, kind of dense neighborhood. But I was surprised at how many lots in Pine Point are actually quite large.
Yeah,
And the scenarios that are coming. How many additional new homes could be going
Yeah.
in a vulnerable area?
yeah, well, even in the map, we're not almost showing it, like our high growth areas are in a lot of that,
Yeah.
and so. That's just concerning to your point of like, if there's new development that comes,
Especially
And
if
it
we're
starts to
talking
flood.
about like town buyback programs.
Yeah.
It's not
Mhm.
just the homeowner's responsibility. The town also could be footing the bill of
Mhm.
that future
Mhm.
flooding.
In these scenarios also. We would essentially lose the Pleasant Hill Industrial Park and we would lose the Scarborough Industrial Park down there by, Tractor Supply. Both those areas would be wiped out.
Well, that's what she's showing right now is Tractor Supply, it looks like it's, I don't know what scenario is this.
This is 3. So you're still.
The roads are good, so the
Yeah.
roads are in red, but in addition,
So you need to fix,
that's the trail,
that's,
the Eastern Trail, yeah.
for some reason when I'm sharing it, like won't let me have my boxes.
But US Route 1 through Marsh District.
So this, you should say, you don't see the red on Route 1 is because when they did the model, they did it, with, showing Route 1 already raised, like, so
Question.
if we go through the scenario that DOT is raising the road, they wanted to see how that impacts beyond. So that was part of this exercise, so that we actually know what to do with the Pine Point Road culverts, because we don't wanna do them and then have to then reassess them once the Route 1 gets raised. And similarly on Sawyer Street, when we talk about that public process we're going through with Sawyer Street, the scenarios we're showing show that with Sawyer Street gone, so you can actually see what actually happens above it. And what inundation happens in each scenario
Is that something,
with a future condition.
I thought I heard in the workshop that you guys plan to engage, because it's not tons of neighbors, but the handful that live there that are gonna be impacted based on the map so that they understand it.
Yeah, and you can see it,
Oh, sorry.
it goes up, and so like Cole Farm, what's it called? You can see it up above Sawyer Street. It does get into the kind of the edge of that neighborhood, Pleasant Hill Road.
Mhm.
And so you can look at those scenarios, and again, these are scenarios without Sawyer Street there, so you can actually, we've modeled it to show what impacts would be happening in all those scenarios.
I didn't realize it would go up that far, like that's interesting.
Like I was saying, at one point, if you go to a different scenario where that point comes down, actually, Scarborough Marsh and Spurwing Marsh will connect.
Mhm.
We're fine with it.
Yeah.
What if you go back to the original, 'cause that's just the web page.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think they're timing.
Great.
We only got 10 minutes left, so I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts on that.
That was really helpful,
Okay.
and you're very knowledgeable, thank you
Yeah.
for all that.
What are staff's next steps? Are you guys gonna, is this autumn, it sounds like you're pulling everything together to kind of put together some sort of prioritization of like what we fund and do?
I think so. So we have a couple more meetings with the Pine Point
Okay.
for vulnerability assessment. We have some meetings with the specific, and then we'll come back to council for acceptance of the final plan. But yeah, the idea is that we have all of these plans and they sort of communicate, and I'm envisioning a process during this budget timing that we have to look at them all together,
Mhm.
prioritize, and we got this bucket of money and where do you spend it, get your biggest bang for your buck.
Yeah.
So if you do this project, maybe you're achieving 4 goals, but this one you're only achieving 1, that's
Yeah.
kind of how I would envision it. It's just in my brain right now, though.
Matrix management. and
Exactly,
it's on the salad,
exactly,
right?
yeah, yeah. That's-
I'm ready to spend some money, I just need you to tell me where.
So Angela's got a list.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what they were looking at, like I said, we're going back to Higgins on September 4th, we go back to Pine Point on September 9th. And then we're back in front of council in October, same thing
Mhm.
with the final products. So. Okay.
On the next one, on the
Yeah.
agenda, when you say reimagine Route 1,
Oh,
what is,
that's a Gen Lab thing. So, well, let's start at Scuttle Hill Road. So just project updates.
Yeah.
So Scuttle Hill Road, that failure that occurred, we are not able to do any work in the tidal portion of the marsh, which is that, until November, just because of the sensitivity with habitat and, just the natural resources there. Army Corps has a window from November to April. And, I know there's a lot of questions around that, so we're trying to, was trying to provide some more context and information and details that will be in the September 1st newsletter around why nothing has been done out there yet. And then really spelling out that given that we can't do anything in November, it gives us the opportunity to look at multiple scenarios. What do we do with that? And so we're looking at, okay, we can't, actually, Army Corps will not let us put back what it was there. So there is a minimal that they would allow. There's also now, we did that whole assessment around the vulnerability assessment, which again, Department of Marine Resources has the coastwise approach, which talks about what that should be sized at. So there's two different scenarios, say, for replacement. And then the third option is Army Corps is actually encouraging us to do a restoration project, which means pull out the culvert, restore the stream, and do some wetland and marsh restoration work around that, which would leave Scotto Hill Road as a permanent dead end.
Which is what Flaherty Farm would love to have happen. I was out there, and she said, oh.
Well, I think there's conflict around that. We'll have to see through the public process. Again, there'd be a public process coming soon. But also the dollars and cents are gonna matter. There's, two different dollars for, say, these culvert replacements. Army Corps is willing, I should say, we're applying, because they encouraged us to utilize the wetland impact money. So when a developer comes in and fills wetlands, they write a check to the state of Maine, and they try to spend those monies within the region. Southern region, a lot of people are writing checks, but not a lot of people are doing these types of restoration projects. So there is money available, and that's why they're encouraging us as saying it could be a zero cost to the town to do something like that. And it's something they would really love to see. Understanding that we also need to spend money on the upstream culvert to that, again, which would be a big dollar. And also the two other Payne Road culverts, which are also big dollars around. So kind of trying to zoom out and look at it holistically. There are really 4 culverts that we need to address in that area. And so again, kind of weighing those options and having the public kind of feedback around that and how we want to spend our dollars.
Could there be a possibility of connecting Scotto Hill to Payne Road above the stream of 30
Yeah.
Is that
Right.
something?
Two Rod Road, right?
So right now, the detour is to Rod Road.
Yeah.
But just like 1,000 feet, or I don't know how far it is, but up above.
So it would be a matter of negotiating or working with private property owners. So we do not own anything that would connect through there, but
Conversation.
there has been conversation started around that, yes. I think it's also, as you start looking at another public street, there's opportunity for development on that street, so it kind of opens up lots, say, for developers, but then also, it's also creating that connection, so there'd be a lot of traffic, so it's kind of weighing how that works. So I think the property owners are trying to weigh that through also, if that's something they want to deal with.
Yeah, ultimately, it should be their call, but that seems to be an ideal scenario for
Yeah.
connectivity.
I will say, I don't think there's any appetite for the town to do any kind of eminent domain, so that would have to be through that public process or negotiation with the property owners. Okay, so Payne Road at Muzzy Road, I'm sure everybody is familiar with that.
Now, are they just putting signals in there, or are they gonna make that straight, make it a
Just
perpendicular?
the signal,
Just the signals, okay?
yes. We don't own the property in order to straighten it out, because ideally it would be across from Ashley Drive. We just don't own that property, and it is part of the Downs TNP. And DOT did not want to saddle them with kind of trying to negotiate and buy a whole property there. I will say the town is partnering with them, so I would say council allocated funds to go towards this signal project, so we're partnering with them on that project. Because it is a huge safety concern for a very long time, and I feel like this intersection is one of the ones that I hear the most about, and it's really good to be able to say, it's coming this year, it's coming. So, that I am happy to say, we had our pre-construction meeting on that, and they are starting on September 8th. And that'll be roadway work. At the same time, that same contractor and the same contract is working on Gorham Road, up near Payne Road. You probably recognize it as probably the worst pavement in the Pennsylvania borough, but they'll be adding a median in there.
Intersection,
From Payne Road to the Hannaford Drive, Hannaford
entrance on.
entrance on Gorham Road, that section, is probably one of the worst pavement sections in town. And so that will get redone, and an island so that we, did a safety audit, and one of the extreme high crash locations is coming, the turning movements from the gas station there, which, is a right in, right out, but everyone goes left, and there are a lot of crashes because of that, so.
They used
So
to have a
that-
sign that said no left, no left turns, but I think that either got run over by someone and removed, or so I mean, the road design clearly shows a right in, right out, but without the signage, I think people take the creative liberty to just do whatever.
And I think it's such a common occurrence, you see everybody doing it, so you're like, oh, it must be, okay, I'll just follow what everybody else is doing. I think that's also part of it, and people have been doing it for so long. But there are a lot of crashes.
So when will we assume that the signal would actually be
So
operational?
then, that's good, I'm glad you brought that back. So, all the roadway work will be done. They're thinking paving everything by the end of October this year. And that gives over the winter, because of supply chain, the signal equipment will be coming for the next construction season. So next spring and summer, the signal will go in.
You know, I think I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people just haven't changed, you know, people who live in town.
Yeah.
Say over this part of the town, if they're going out to Costco, right? I mean, I always went down, if I was going out to exit 42, I always went out 114, cut across Muzzy.
Oh.
But I don't do it anymore
Right.
because you can't, now coming back, I always go through Muzzy, you know, and I think people just get used to that.
Yes. I think you're right. It's a lot of traffic, distribution is gonna probably change in that area. It's really hard to predict.
Yeah.
Once the apartments fill up though, things are gonna get
But they'll learn too, you know.
more challenging.
Mitchell Hill Road, is actually gonna be closed at the Gorham line. Their DOT is redoing that bridge crossing at the Gorham Town line, and so it'll be a
Picture of
full.
that bridge, I don't know which one that is.
What?
I'm just kidding you.
Oh, yeah, you like a good picture or map, don't you? Well, you probably don't go out that way, do you? But 45 days
Is that-
is a long time for a full closure, and they are coordinating with the fire and police, but, I will say this past week, Public Works started getting a lot of calls, cause there were a lot of signs going up with black bags over them. All over, kind of, I've seen them around, North Scarborough, and they kind of stretch all over. But it's really detour signs associated with Mitchell Hill Road, because people are gonna have to try to find other kind of commuting paths, because I think that is a commuting path. So that's what you see those signs with the black bags over them. A lot of people are questioning what those are. But, so there'll be a full detour for 45 days on that. We imagine Route 1 is a regional effort that we've talked about in the past, and Jen Ladd is actually the project project engineer for that. We had a public meeting. I thought you were here at the.
No, we were at the plant meeting, yeah.
Roger,
You were too.
it was here at town
You were
hall.
there?
Yeah.
So we
And
actually
there were activities.
have a meeting tomorrow to go over this preliminary list of priorities for the whole corridor. And then they're gearing up for another public meeting in September.
Great.
But I was hoping, yeah, Jen might have more to
Yeah.
say about it, but she was not able to.
Are we hosting the public meeting in September? Is it another town?
I don't know, I don't think.
So is this the same project when they described TY Lin, are they involved in this?
No,
This
That's the other one?
Tool
Tool
design.
One study? This is not the Route One study,
the Ruin Quarter study, no,
okay,
This is
that we did with Saco.
reimagining Route One.
This
This
is
is-
for the entire
For the
region.
Entire.
So it kind of goes in the PAX region, so I think it goes from Freeport
Linear,
down
all the way
to
down
Biddeford.
Biddeford.
okay.
So they have a list of projects and segments and improvements.
Yeah, you can see the whole corridor, it's,
And this is
That's
just the
what top box.
southern section I have pulled up. But then it's great to have Jen as our,
yeah, it's good, actually.
Awesome.
Because
we have a lot of
Start with
big
focus.
list of things to go over.
Yeah.
In charge of the purse though?
So,
Well, she's leading it, so she knows all the Scarborough places that we need to address, so that's a good thing.
so there's a lot of things. So yeah, tomorrow we'll know more about how the meeting goes and then what they end up taking to the public and such.
Oh, one of the things that's not on here is an update on the, Sawyer and Route One demonstration project.
That's right, they are, from our comments and police and fire's comments, they were. Gonna revisit the plan and finalize them, so we're waiting for a final plan from them.
Okay.
But they have them in Saco. You know,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Temporary ones,
Yes, so
they
that,
have them on Stevens Avenue,
Right.
geez, they're popping up everywhere.
that was, the year before us, so we are
Okay,
in line, was that the 23 projects, we were the 24 projects, and then the next round will actually, be like a real demonstration project. Is, at Little Dolphin Drive and Route One,
okay,
that section of road. There back to Hannaford Drive, that kind of section and how you get kind of pedestrians moving around there. And that will be a demonstration project. The one at Sawyer was a planning project, so it was really just, like I said, we're gonna get a plan. That's preliminary, kind of like the schematic. There, it'll be more like the Thornton one, on Saco Main Street. That was a
Oh, yeah.
demonstration project. That's what we have coming. It's a demonstration project. I don't know what that'll look like yet, but happening up at Little Dolphin.
So is that a 2026?
Yes, we haven't started. That hasn't been kicked off yet.
Okay.
It's grouped with others from like South Portland. And, you know, Saco had some other ones too, so they kind of do them in groups. And then Eastern Trail, Close the Gap, moving right along. In October, they'll be able to do a lot more tree clearing, which they haven't been able to do because of the bats and the habitat around that, so.
I thought the bats were all at Maine Met.
In the
Oh,
pediatric.
that's right, I read that too.
They must have let them loose.
Um,
They all had to go to the hospital.
so I think they're gonna be ahead of schedule, but we're still going at a very fast pace. The next step though is really some bridge work, which we're trying to coordinate with CMP, so we'll see if that gets delayed or not. And then Metro Connect, we did, Tom Hall, we met with Metro again to start kind of the framework around what an agreement might look like, so it's really kind of this memorandum kind of thing to walk through the structure, what's coming, and also DOT is a partner in that, so it's trying to get Metro, the town, and DOT to make sure we're all on the same page before we start working on the actual agreement. I think we're still on track though, is my understanding, because they'll be doing kind of that whole study to try to get prepped for the micro transit piece and enhancing our permanent route also. So that's what I have.
I've
8:05. Okay.
got something to add with the
Okay.
Metro Connect, which
Okay.
is some pretty exciting news.
He's all excited, I could
All
tell.
right.
Yeah, so. Maine Turnpike Authority by law has to contribute 5% of their annual revenue to MDOT projects. And sort of controversially, that 5% was directed at the Gorham connector. With the Gorham connector not happening, at least right away, they need to find a way to spend that 5%, and it has to be a way that both the MTA and Maine DOT both approve of. And they have proposed 1.6 million to the fixed route for Scarborough, and an additional 1.7 million to the Scarborough microtransit. I think that's gonna go to a MTA board vote in a couple weeks, and so it might be something that we as a transportation committee might want to draft a letter. Just encouraging them to make that investment.
So I'm curious, because of my conversations with, GCOG, is that specific to Scarborough or just to the issue around the connector?
It's specific to Scarborough. It's, the microtransit is now a Scarborough and South Portland microtransit.
Yes, it
Is
is.
the latest proposal.
Correct. Yeah,
So the 1.7 million would go to that entire microtransit
okay,
project, both Scarborough and South Portland, but the fixed route is just Scarborough. And it would be over a 5-year period, so it'd be, it's kind of heavy on the first couple years to get it going.
Yeah.
And then kind of peters out with 2030, but they're also only looking to do their 5% funding for them for this 5-year period, so it could be a longer term funding source.
That's
It should be-
great.
Yeah,
That's
really
great.
exciting, so.
Great.
this
So
is,
yeah, so that might be something that.
Yeah.
We
Have you
could
charged
talk
it on
about
glass?
all
All right.
doing
I'll
an
look into
official.
that too, and try to provide, the
Yeah.
group something, if, and if you have something to share, you wanna send it along to me, that would be great. In the conversations, I've had with GPCOG, they actually put out a request for municipalities to look at areas where we want to study or consider roundabouts. So, and I think Cash will mention it when he's here, that their focus is around really in the replacement of the Gorham connector, is looking at the ways to kind of connect like Portland into the outer communities. And I followed up with him after that because I was curious around it, and we did submit some well, from the transportation study, which is helpful for staff, because I can go to that and just say, oh, it clearly says here are the two intersections. It was actually Running Hill Road at 114 as one of them, and the other one was
Broad turn, yeah, it was on Broad Turn.
But then I also asked around the triangle or North Scarborough, if there's something we can kind of look at, and whether that's, I think we've brought up in the past, is like, can that be a non-traditional roundabout and you're kind of losing the whole triangle? Or even looking at some of those three intersections. And I kind of got a little bit of, well, we're really focused on the Portland kind of connecting and not necessarily Scarborough. So I want to make sure we're pushing that as this is the issue here in Scarborough, and not GPCOG tends to focus towards Portland a little heavy. So I'd like to try to keep pulling that this way.
Is there anything the council should do from like a resolution perspective that would help to communicate? Like you were talking about a letter from this group, I'm thinking maybe if the
Yeah.
council took action of some sort that might be good.
We can reach out to, staff can reach out to MTA and
Mhm.
DOT about that, because it might be helpful for their staff to have that in Scarborough, since we have been pretty vocal
Yeah.
about kind of what we would support or not, so maybe that is a good way.
I'll forward you the proposal that.
Yeah, that would be
And,
perfect.
I know that Metro's in that conversation.
They put up new metro stop signs along one, because I've noticed them in the last month and a half, new signs. And I've noticed more people waiting by them to pick up the bus. It is helpful, you know, if you got a sign, yeah,
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
The bus and stuff.
That is,
yeah.
a bench would be really nice too,
A bench.
yeah.
That's exciting
Yeah,
though, that's really great.
Yeah, it'd be a total of like 3 point.
Yeah.
$3 million for over 5 years, which would really give that extra push.
Yeah. That's exciting.
Angela, what's the status of Saco Street and all the work being done there by DOT? Is that complete? And I know there's some homeowners there that are frustrated. Have we resolved that with them?
Uh,
Seems like they're out of there. Right.
Yes, they are done with it, but there was no communication between Maine DOT around it, and it was, they shut down the major intersections during problematic times, so it created a lot of issues. I don't know if that's what you're speaking to, if it's.
I didn't know about the issues. I know about the property owners' concerns.
So that's the problem is there's 2 projects happening. And I think what some of the frustration is, which I can totally appreciate, is when residents reach out and say, I have an issue with, say, with the detour, and like you said, the gridlock that's happening. When we're not out there, and I'm like, I need to direct you to DOT, and that's their because I don't really have any ability to. Like, at that point, I didn't even know who the contractor was, quite frankly, to reach out to. So, and then they called DOT and they were saying, no, the town's doing a signal project. And so people were getting the runaround, so I totally understand that frustration. I was frustrated myself because I will say it's a DOT light capital paving project that they did out there. And while it's great to have a brand new road all the way from Saco, all the way into actually Westbrook, they are not required to do any public notice whatsoever. And even for the town, I believe I got 2 days notice that I just got a random, the email of, we're gonna be doing their DOT project and we're starting in 2 days kind of thing. So I didn't have time to kind of even react and try to do anything about it. So, I am trying to do better about that. So I do have a map. And as things come up, and that's where I have a struggle with the DOT projects, is we try to at least put it on the map. So I'm like, in the next year, because that's how they do it, 2025, we're paving. I have no idea when, but I'll put it on the map. So it's coming. It's just, we might not get any notice around it, on when that's happening. And there was major detours and road closures associated with that. At the same time, though, we're doing a signal project.
Which just went online.
Which just went online, yes.
Who manages that?
Public Works, well, when the contractor's done, right now it has not been handed over
Okay.
to the town, so it's still on the contractor to get it up and running. I will say the rhythm adaptive signal has not been turned on. So right now,
It seems pretty dumb right now.
it's running, it is running
That's-
on a timer, it's running on,
It's actually worse than it needs to be, I think.
it's worse than.
The timing is a little bit, so one of the problems. When you have an intersection, I think you wanna try to balance each leg, so if there are backups, you're kind of getting similar backups.
Yeah.
And during the commuting hours, when 114 is heavily traveled.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the timing to reflect that, so that you never have backups on
Yeah.
Saco and Beach. Because it's giving them the same kind of priority it always does.
Yeah.
But 114 now backs up and backs up and backs up. So if you allowed more time for 114 and less time for Beach Ridge and Saco, it would maybe mean that people on Beach Ridge and Saco might have to wait an extra minute at a red light, but it would be so helpful. The only problem with that is that you then have the next light, which is County Road and 114, that has to be in sync to allow traffic flow.
Right.
'Cause if they're not communicating to each
Right.
other, then it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, and so my understanding is that Rhythm is the manufacturer of our adaptive signals, was supposed to be on site this week, I believe, or next. To try to get that up and running and trying to get that at least learning. It's not even at that point yet where it starts learning the traffic patterns, like you said, it starts so that it can run in the background, and then when we turn that on, it can kind of jump into that, knowing that, like I said, adapting to which side, and it's gonna be probably also, I'm already seeing it'll be an adjustment for drivers that go through there all the time, that it's not like, okay, it's my turn next, like you can see, okay, I'm gonna get the next green. Doesn't go by that, you could, it's gonna flip flop around as the need is there, so try to, yeah, that's gonna be an adjustment or learning curve also.
Is there a way for the two lights to communicate?
Yes, so when it goes adaptive, those are linked by fiber, so they will talk, it'll work as one system. So that's the 114 will work as one system, so that will be, yes, the big advantage.
That's great, thanks for putting that through.
Speaking of the adaptive lights, I'm still getting some mixed reviews. More from people on the side streets, I'm trying to come in on
Yeah.
the Route 1. Do we have data that really kind of shows what's happening? Because I think that's what one of the things when we talk about growth that people are mostly will refer to. I was on Black Point Road for so long waiting to turn. I'm just curious, like, what is that experience actually like? Is it 10 minutes, 5 minutes? Because I still feel like I'm getting also complaints about the left turn to Portland Farms Road. Where
So,
people will
yeah.
sit there for a really, really long time and there's no cars coming.
There are two intersections that I guess I'm hearing, so if I'm hearing it, Public Works must be hearing it, and I do forward all of the
Yeah.
comments I get down to Public Works, and is Portland Farm Road in Commerce,
Mhm.
that Portia just mentioned
Mhm.
to me,
I
And so
think the other
those are
one
the-
too is down by on the vine, isn't it?
The Portland. No.
Portland Farm is up here.
No, I'm talking about another one.
Line.
that you have issues there, I haven't heard that at all.
Coming out of, if you're coming out of Portland, on the vine and you
Yeah.
wanna head north.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to sit there quite a long time.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's
Now, it
just
may
because,
change if
I
there's
think
a lot
that's
of
by
traffic
nature,
coming
though.
up on. From Payne Road, but if you happen to be down there when there's not.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of traffic on Route 1, you sit there for quite a while.
so I will say this, we have. So that might be by nature, because one of the things we're also talking about is like zooming out in that we've heard a lot from the. Payne Road neighborhoods, kind of south of Cabela's, and people still using Payne Road rather than going, I guess, Route 1.
Yeah.
So making that leg more difficult to get out of is actually a strategy.
Okay.
To try to make that not the short way to go, really making, and I think if you time it out, it is shorter to go I guess in Route 1, but people are programmed to be like, that is actually, that's the other leg of the triangle, it'll be quicker. But it's not, and you're going through neighborhoods that they should be going slower in, first of all, and then also getting to that end. It really disrupts the kind of that flow of Route 1, and so I think. Some of that delay is strategic. I will say Portland Farm is not, because I've heard major things about like no traffic coming, I can't get out. And then listening to Portia talking about also Commerce, so. I just pass those along, and I think Public Works continues to work with the adaptive manufacturer to try to tweak those. I mean, I will say, I think we heard a lot about Municipal Drive, but I mean, I'm in and out of here commuting hours and all in between, and I've seen a huge improvement there, and I think that was tweaking to get that to work, and so I see that it can
I
happen.
mean, I take Ward and I've just been amazed at how often I pull up to make that turn and it's instant, yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as a pedestrian crossing Route 1, I think it's been slower. I don't know if that's backed up by anything, but I cross at Portland Farms Road, and it seems like it takes a lot longer than it used to. And I'll cross at Commerce too. I haven't noticed as much of a difference on that one, but
I think one of the differences on Commerce, because I've noticed less traffic coming out of the medical center now. I think what they're doing is going up to Sawyer
Mhm.
and getting out.
Yeah.
Because Sawyer Light,
Oh,
you can get out on.
But going back to the data, like, do we have
Yeah.
any like data that we can see that's like Pareto's that show, like, if you're turning on Black Point Road, sometimes you're there for 10 minutes, sometimes you're there for 2 minutes, and it's like an average, like, to just be able to like
Yeah.
really understand
I
how
mean,
well they're working.
I know we have, from the signals, we can capture volume, so we have that, like how. Yeah, how many trips are taking maneuvers during the day, and But I don't know how detailed that gets into like how long the delay is, but I would think we would be able to get there. I will say Dunstan went in first for adaptive. And we are able to pull that data and so you can compare to before and after, and we have 20% more traffic going through Dunstan than we did prior. So it is showing, but it's getting the traffic through because you're
Right.
prioritizing Route 1.
Yeah.
And so it'd be interesting to know what the data is for this section of Route 1, which we can pull. And the more we tweak, as we talk about the size of the streets tweaking, the less that number is gonna keep dropping.
Yeah.
And so what is the good number? Is 10% enough for us to do this investment? You know what I mean? So we have to start thinking about that.
Yeah.
Is really it's about moving kind of that volume of traffic.
Cause we've made the investment, so it'd be great to be able to show people
Right.
how the investment's working, cause like some of the things you're sharing too, they're like. If we're deliberately pushing people to a different place, like we should make sure they know that, so that if they are frustrated at that light, we should say, yes, we know you are. You go the other way.
I will say like Cabela's is purposely as frustrating, like, that was, predates me.
Yeah.
When Cabela's went in, it was again, the strategic planning of going highest in Route 1. And that signal, prioritizes Cabela's even when there's really nobody coming in, going out of Cabela's, it prioritizes them because it's more about delay going down Paint Road. And so that's again, a bigger strategic kind of look at it. And so looking at those two signals on either end, kind of how you control those.
I think they're basically working pretty good. The frustrating point that I feel is, when somebody's in front of me
Mhm.
and they're not paying attention.
Yeah.
And then, especially coming out of, say, Black Point Road to Route 1.
Yeah.
And they're not paying attention.
Yeah.
And before you know it,
You miss.
and you
bullets.
might be the fourth or fifth car, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
the lights turn yellow, and those people scoot through after they're looking at their phone or doing whatever they're doing, that's the frustrating thing.
You honk at those people, right?
Oh, I don't, I'm very polite.
It's not Texas.
It's probably me.
Can I ask a question too? Has these motorized, scooters come up for any discussion with Public Works or the police department or anything?
I have not been part of that.
Boy, I tell you, I was down at Higgins Beach.
Yeah.
At a cottage. And I went to back out, I'm looking all, because everybody parks everywhere down there. I'm looking all over the place, I'm looking through my camera. And I start to back out, and all of a sudden this kid comes whipping by on the scooter. And he was zipping by. And then we watched him, he's weaving all over the place. And then in our neighborhood, the Pleasant Hill neighborhood, these kids have these motorized scooters and they're zipping down the road. And somebody, and one kid actually recently fell off his scooter when they were actually paving the road. They only did one side of the road, and I think his scooter,
Oh, at the edge.
and he actually knocked on my front door. He has a compound fractured arm.
Oh.
Because, and he was only, I think he was, maybe 10 years old or something like that. But, I mean, these kids, they're really going
They're
fast.
whipping down the sidewalks, right?
Yeah. They are, and
Fast.
I think there's just.
Yeah, right.
There was,
Yeah. Through our
there's been
neighborhood.
complaints too, of e-bikes on the beach where. They're just going so
Actually
much
on the sand?
faster, yeah, too, and like, so I think. I don't know. What the town can do to like. Address e-bikes on our roads.
Well, it's not really like it,
Yeah, I was
it's the
just-
scooters.
But I think it's the same thing,
Well,
like
true.
motorized and
You mean
fast.
motorized.
Yeah,
Bike lanes
Some-
Oh, just the scooters, like the kids on the scooters.
yeah,
They're very skillful, but
Yeah.
boy, they're dangerous to people like me, because you never know where they're gonna be.
I had one that scared the crap out of me. I came around the corner and it was coming right at me, it was like,
Yeah.
whoa, you could be dead here. Yeah,
So,
Yeah, I have not actually moved
okay,
anything.
part of it is, I think, just youth.
well, I can just see more often, we're gonna see more of those things.
Yeah, No, I'm sure, it probably will be,
I
yeah.
mean, every kid that has one now, the other kid has to have one.
Are we gonna see you on one though? That's the question.
I'm working my way to it.
They don't wear helmets.
There's someone that commutes to work on one on Higas every morning, like when I come into work, I see them.
Well, there's
The girl now.
there's one on Highland Avenue too, that I see when I'm going over. To scratch bagels.
Oh,
We need a wider sidewalk so that we shared use paths instead of the little standard 5 foot, so we can all
Yeah.
have our own lanes.
Should
Is this
scooter
part of the
be-
sidewalk master plan?
I don't think they even, I think.
They need more
feel,
helmets, a lot of
This
it.
is my road.
Well, that's a parenting
If
issue.
you have a shoulder bike lane, you should probably be on that bike lane and not on the sidewalk, though.
The scooters, I would not let my child be in that bike
Yeah.
lane, because there would be a bike, I don't know.
Depends
Sidewalks.
how big, I guess,
Yeah.
depends how fast they're going.
right,
My daughter rides her bike on the sidewalk, but she can't. 'Cause I don't want it. to shoot.
Yeah.
but that's not actually allowed, is
It is.
It is.
Not prohibited.
oh,
Yeah, I looked it
In
up.
fact, I asked that question a couple of years ago and I think
It's a
you
lot.
investigated and said, yeah, it's okay, cause I've never heard of riding your bike on a sidewalk.
Yeah, it's a
And
lot.
it's okay here, which just shocked me.
We just need bigger.
All right, well, I'm gonna adjourn the meetings, anyone? Want a motion to adjourn?
Second,
Yeah.
All right, I will,
next meeting,
next meeting, yep, September 23rd, let's see if I. And hopefully we will have, like I said, maybe talking through some of the context of our complete street kind of categories of roadways. I think is hopefully the plan.
okay.
Okay. All right. See you.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.